All right, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Hawk Droppings with me, your host, Hawk. I'm very excited about our guest this week. You guys all know her from TikTok, Jordan the Gray Witch, and I'm incredibly thankful and grateful for you for joining me. Thanks, Jordan. How you doing?
You're very welcome. I'm happy to be here. I'm stoked. We've been friends online for years now.
Quite a while, yeah.
I think we have a lot of overlapping followers.
Uh-huh. Yeah, no doubt. So I'm very, very happy that you could join me today because I want to start diving into issues of misogyny and masculinity and where those things go wrong. And having followed you for as long as I have, I know that you deal with those issues every single day on the internet.
I sure do.
Right?
Yeah, it sustains me. It feeds me. Every misogynistic comment I get, every threat, I just grow more powerful.
Well, you know, you've been a bit of an inspiration for me just in your clapbacks to some of these guys. I think you and I both have very strong clapback game, but mine's with the MAGAs.
I think it's just these people are bullies, right? And sometimes they just need a little dose of their own medicine and a big old reality check. Because I'm 38 years old. I have been a tall, thin, conventionally attractive white woman my entire life. Okay, these men do not leave me alone. I have dealt with these men harassing me, hitting on me, following me since I was literally 14 years old. So I got pretty good at dealing with them and getting them the fuck out of my face, honestly, because you would be amazed. Like, I think my partner now, he didn't get it. He didn't get how bad it was until he started dating me. And then anytime we would go anywhere, if the man steps away from me for a minute to go take a piss, they're like flies. They just immediately right over. And he didn't get it until he started dating me. And he's just like, holy shit, they just never leave you alone. It never stops. So yeah, I got pretty good at, telling them to swallow a satchel of Richards.
Well, and I would imagine dealing with them confronting you in person is different than just dealing with some faceless keyboard warrior on the internet.
Oh yeah, well, right. The ones in person, they're very rarely hostile. Usually the ones in person are just trying to fuck you. So they're pretty easy to get rid of. I mean, in most cases, as long as I'm not alone. But the ones online, man, they just, she's going to see this. And I'm just like, just keep engaging my page, bud.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. And it's like, for people who don't know, her current partner is basically a Viking. I mean, he's like a giant with long hair and a beard. And how much of a wake up call was that for him? Had he never seen any of that stuff like that before?
So when we started dating, it was, towards the end of my modeling career. I was a model in my 20s, so before I met him. And he's like, I've never dated a model before. Like, you don't know what it's like when you walk down the street with a model until you walk down the street with a model and everybody looks at you. And not everybody can handle that. Insecure men cannot handle that. I've been with men who are like, why are people all staring at us? Like, they get insecure, even on a date with me. Like, on a first date once, I literally left a first date before because the guy was so damn insecure. He couldn't figure out why everyone was looking at us. And I was like, dude, like, I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, that's exactly what it's like for my brother Falcon when he walks down the street with me.
Yeah, I know. I mean, he's just like, everyone is stopping and staring.
Everybody, that was a joke.
For sure, though, because everyone knows who you are now. I'm sure people see you a lot out and about.
Yeah, I get recognized a bit now. It was fun in September. Our dad and our stepmom were out, and we were having lunch with them one day in San Francisco in the Ferry Building, and we were standing in line waiting to order. And a very excited, enthusiastic woman came up to me, and she's like, "Oh my God, you're Hawk!" And my dad and my stepmom thought that was just the coolest thing ever. But
yeah,
so far for me, every one of those experiences has been positive.
Same for me so far. But, I mean, like, people that recognize me, it does happen. But it's nice. It's like they're all super nice, and I get nervous because like I'm awkward. I'm a weirdo. So like, and even in person, like sometimes I'll just be like, I don't know if I hear my name and I'm like, oh no, are you a lover or a hater? I don't know. You don't know because I get literal death threats from like incels,
Yeah.
so you can never really tell. But I have had all positive experiences with people, and if you do see me out and about, please say hi. I promise I'm nice, despite being awkward as hell.
And we were chatting a little bit before I hit the record button. And I mean, I guess I'll put it this way. It's like, I was raised basically by a single mother, my brother and I. And our mom, when we were kids, she was a registered nurse, and she went to law school at night when we were in high school and became an attorney. She was extremely intelligent, extremely outgoing. A Leo, just kind of took over the room, every room she entered. And she was also very, very physically attractive, objectively. And, growing up, she always told my brother and I stories about the things that she experienced with men. And like by the time my brother and I were probably 14, 15 years old, it's like we had, pseudo PTSD from some of those stories. And, and then she became an attorney, and those stories got worse because it's like, the law field is just all old white men. And I've had so many friends, attorneys who are women, and up to including to this day, they have stories and horrific stories. But to me, it's like, it feels like the internet has made all of this stuff worse in that it allows young men to just kind of isolate in these own little bro culture worlds, and then allows them to be anonymous on the internet and say the kinds of things that they say to my friends on TikTok who are women. It's just horrific to me.
Absolutely. I mean, I get emails from them sometimes. Like they go out of their way to email me. I mean, I get messages. I only have TikTok and Instagram, so those are the two places they can message me. But some of the things that I've gotten,
Yeah.
I mean, it's wild. And the thing is that they hate me even more because when they first see me, their knee-jerk reaction is, "Oh, she's hot." And then I start talking and they go, "Ugh, hate this, hate." And it's like this weird caveman thing where they then have to beat it out of me. Like quite literally, they want to. They want to get physically violent with me because I'm saying something that really triggers their worldview. It really triggers them. My existence triggers them because in their minds, I should be breeding. I should be property. And the fact that I am neither of those things, it just pisses them off. And I love pissing them off, to be perfectly frank.
It's so one website that I've been reading for 20 years. It's a news website called Talking Points Memo. It's politics and stuff. And it's run by this guy named Josh Marshall. And one of the things that I appreciate him is he publishes a lot of reader emails. And he put up an email last Wednesday from a woman. He was like, tell me your voting experiences and stuff. And she went and voted with her 18-year-old son. And this was the first time that he was voting. And he was proudly voting for Kamala Harris, but among his social circle, he was an anomaly in that regard. And she started talking to him about that last Tuesday night. And he went into great detail about, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, all these Twitch and online video games, Call of Duty, things like that, where it's like if the algorithms pick up on the fact that you're a young man, especially a young white man, then they just start directing all of this content to you. That,
Yeah.
eventually it's like you're 2 clicks away from Andrew Tate. And, all of a sudden you're listening to Joe Rogan 4 times a week and Matt Walsh and shit like
I've
that.
met Joe Rogan.
Jordan Peterson.
I've met Joe Rogan. I'm taller than him.
I was going to say, he's a short little guy, isn't he?
Yeah, you haven't seen funny until you've seen that guy climb up into his truck like a spider monkey because it's lifted so high and he literally has to climb into it. It's the funniest thing you've ever seen.
Oh man. But it's like, it just seems, I mean, it's this kind of thing when I'm talking about, it just seemed, and this mother was completely flabbergasted. She had no idea about any of this.
The right-wing pipeline.
Yeah. And she was just like speechless. And he's like, oh yeah, that's how they've gotten all of my buddies. And the son was just like, yeah, that's just how it is. And it just seems to be making everything worse between men and women, especially if you're under 30.
There's definitely a wedge. And I talked about that on my channel last week. There's a lot of women who the first question out of their mouth, dating, going forward, is who did you vote for? And now we know that, of course, a slew of them are going to lie. But the thing is that women can always smell a fucking lie. We know, and it's on your behavior as well. We can tell by your vernacular. We can tell by what you're saying.
Yeah.
We know what line you toe. And that answer of, oh, I'm not that political, that's an even bigger red flag, motherfucker. That's even worse.
Yeah.
Or if they say they're a moderate, oh, okay, so you're just a conservative, but also a massive pussy because you can't admit that you're a conservative. I'd rather someone just say they're a conservative than to say I'm a moderate or I'm a libertarian. Libertarians are just conservatives that like to smoke weed. Don't fucking twist my nipples over it, my man. You're full of shit. We can smell the shit from here.
Yeah.
So just be honest. Just be honest. If you're honest, it doesn't matter. Listen, if you're a conservative, say that. Own that shit. But if you know you have to lie to get laid, let's put that together, buddy. There's a fucking reason.
Yeah. My favorite line about libertarians is that libertarians are like cats. They think they live their lives completely independent of everyone and everything, when in actuality, they're completely dependent on everyone around them.
Yeah, someone still scoops their shit.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And it just seems to me that like portrayals of masculinity are becoming more and more toxic online and reaching men and boys at a younger and younger age.
I agree. And I think that it's really sad too, because, ideals of that type of masculinity, that toxic sort of masculinity, that's what we're fed.
Yeah.
Like even as, women, like that's what we normalize in this society. But now sort of the toxic masculinity that I see sort of infecting the young guys, it's so sad because to me, like displays of actual masculinity, like firstly, the alpha thing, like that's not a scientific thing. That's not even a thing. Okay. Like the guy that started that retracted it and made his whole life about retracting it. So, and it's also not applicable to Homo sapiens. It's not applicable to humans. We don't have alpha people. That's just not a thing. So the people that want to fall under this sort of archetype, this I'm an alpha male, the thing is that if there were an alpha male back in the day when we did live in tribes, those would be the ones that would be out hunting. They would also be building the home. They would also be gardening. They would also be protecting the children and teaching them how to do things. That is what an alpha man did. They protected everyone. People weren't afraid of them. Their family felt safe. There was no reason to be aggressive to someone unless they're encroaching on you or your family's safety. Okay. And this was before we had, wars and shit like that. So the way that humans evolved, our technology has surpassed our evolution. We are now trying to fight as these creatures that evolved on this planet in social circumstances, in social settings, to all of a sudden to be isolated within these tiny apartments, these tiny homes where we don't see other people. We don't have community. We don't have those things. And that is so detrimental to these young boys because they're isolated. They're isolated during the most, tempestuous time in their lives when they're going through puberty. They're learning who they are. They're surging with hormones, and all they want to do is be with a girl. But society's telling them women are terrible. No, you can't do that. You have to be alpha. And so they're confused. They're scared. They're alone. And what happens with little boys who don't know how to control their emotions? We see it every day in high schools across America.
Yeah.
And that's how they get there. because they don't have that community and they're too afraid to ask for it. Do you understand that, like, what a hug would do for some of these guys? An actual hug would be the difference between them keeping or taking their own life. And that's how sad it is now. And the only community they have is this sort of like hyper toxic, subgenre of like right-wing pipeline down into the abyss where they're just festering. And it's sad. It's an epidemic.
Yeah. I mean, you mentioned schools. I mean, we've seen that going on for the last week in schools, in high schools and middle schools, with young men, boys, taunting their female classmates with the words of Nick Fuentes, "Your body, my choice."
That goes both ways, bitch. Your ball's my boot.
Well, I think as with everything else in this election, it's like people on the right have some really hard lessons coming. And I mean, talking about the election a little bit, it's like after they voted, they started Googling what tariffs are on the right. I mean, and then they started finding out what Trump's going to do to the Department of Education and what that's going to do to the programs for their special needs kids or their dyslexic kids or their autistic kids who are on IEP programs.
Yep.
And and then they started Googling, and this is true. Then they started Googling, "Can I change my vote?" It's just,
I was listening to another creator talk about this, and it put it into a perspective. Now, listen, I voted for Kamala Harris. I voted against Donald Trump in the last 3 elections, in fact.
Same.
So, I don't want to come off as like I'm criticizing her. I'm not. What I'm saying is, the people that voted for him do not have the education to understand what they voted for. And these people can't afford food or gas. So in their world, They don't care that somebody that they don't know maybe lost a right that is in no way going to affect them. So like when I heard it broken down like this, she was like, these people are really struggling. And on top of that, they're not educated. So they're not educated, they're struggling, and they have been told, this is the problem, this is what caused it, and he's going to fix it for you, right? Which we know is horseshit. We know is a giant pile of steaming monkey shit. We know that. But they don't have the discernment to know that they're voting against their own self-interest. And the rest of us are screaming what's seemingly into the fucking void because now they're realizing, oh, tariffs are bad. Oh, no, Obamacare and the Affordable Care Act are the same thing. For some reason, they thought they were two things. So this all boils down to education. And now with the fact that the new administration is going to get rid of the education department, it's only going to make this problem worse. And anybody that knows history saw this coming from a mile away. Anytime any nation goes through economic hardship, you see a rise in fascism afterwards. It's clockwork. It's history. And we are repeating it here in America because half of our population is illiterate and reads under a 6th grade level. That's a real fact. Like, that's a huge fucking problem.
Yeah, and I mean, incumbent small L liberal democratic governments are getting thrown out all throughout the West, and because of the post-COVID inflation and things like that. And it's like there's a rise in hard right-wing ideologies going on all throughout Europe.
Yep, Germany, Italy.
Putin's doing his thing. Yeah. It's terrifying, but I did a TikTok earlier today where I listed those things. It's like tariffs and the Department of Education and what was the one that you just mentioned?
What? Oh, the Affordable Care Act?
I forgot it already. Yeah, Obamacare versus the Affordable Care Act.
But they didn't realize it was the same thing. Like, yeah, and I saw someone saying, like, oh no, like, we can't lose that, then I'll lose my health care. And we were like, baby, that's what we were trying to tell you the whole time.
Oh, my God, man. And it's just, I said in the TikTok, I was like, I'm like, all of that would be funny. It would be funny.
If it wasn't
but
so
for
sad.
the fact that people who don't look like me are going to be the ones who pay the price for that for the next 4 years, and it's going to be awful. It's going to be awful.
That's what Bill and I said. We looked at each other and we were like, look, like, we're going to be fine. This isn't going to affect us in that way, but it's going to affect people I care about. It's going to affect people I love, and it's going to affect people I don't know that I still believe should have fucking rights.
Yeah.
Like it, and maybe that is coming from a place of privilege, because we will be okay. So when you tell these people, because they thought voting for Donald Trump is going to lower the cost of gas and eggs, which we both know it's not, but that's what they thought. So they didn't care that somebody that they don't know maybe loses a right that isn't necessary in their mind. All they know is, I can't afford to live anymore. And that's Joe Biden's fault, because they don't understand that any economy is from the residual president.
Yeah. Well, and it's like, I think so many people on the right treated this election, like it was a sporting event, like it was a football game or a NASCAR race.
Right.
And they were just rooting for their team or their favorite driver, and not having any understanding of what the fallout was going to be. And the crazy thing is, it's like Trump was telling them exactly what he was going to do, but he just was able to sell it. And they were like, oh, that sounds amazing.
I mean,
take away healthcare? That sounds great.
He made them feel that it was okay to be hateful outwardly. And that's what they want, because they're hateful inwardly, and they don't want to hate themselves. They don't want to grow. They don't want to learn. They want to blame it on someone else. It's someone else's problem. It's these people. The amount of people that I see bitching about trans women being in bathrooms, first and foremost, I can promise you, you have peed next to a trans woman and did not know. Secondly, I'm more worried about white cis men in the bathroom than I am about a trans woman. Okay? Because that's the demographic that hurts kids. That's the demographic that hurts women. So don't look at me and say that a population, the trans population, that's less than 1% of our country, are the problem. Okay? When we all know, we all have the data, we know who the problem is, but they can't look in the fucking mirror. They don't want to.
Yeah. It's just like, well, something that I talk about frequently, a magazine article from 2017 by a guy named Adam Serwer. And everybody who hears this podcast is going to know this already, because I talk about this article all the time. He writes for The Atlantic. His last name is spelled Serwer. He wrote a very prescient article in 2017 about Trump supporters called "The Cruelty is the Point." And it's about how they build community with one another through cruelty to people who are different than them.
Correct.
And he opens that article by talking about, he was at, I can't remember the exact name. It's like, the American Museum for Slavery or something like that. And he was in a section of this museum where they had photos of lynchings from the early part of the 20th century. And he was like, the photos themselves obviously center, whatever charred, mangled black body hanging from a tree. But he was like, what I was drawn to were the people in the background, the white people who had put on their best clothes, who were treating this as a social event, and who were smiling, and who were trying to get into this photograph, and this is how they built community with one another, through these horrific acts of racist violence. And that was his analogy for modern day Trump supporters. And the first time I read that, I was just like, what the fuck, man?
I mean, he's not wrong he's not wrong, because when people don't have community, they will bond over all that they have. And when all that they have is hate, that's what they bond over. That's why removing the red hat is so difficult for these people, because they don't know who they are without it. They have made their entire personality this thing, And not just that thing, but Christianity as well. You know, that there's the whole issue with that, where they don't know who they are outside of what they have been taught and who they have been told to be. And the thing is that I truly believe that community and communal spaces would really solve this problem. The problem is, who the fuck wants to build community with these people? Who wants to open their doors and their table to these people to teach them? Who wants to do that? None of us do. So how do we eliminate the wedge that's between these two groups? Because more and more women are going this way, and more young men are going this way, and that gap is just getting wider and wider.
Yeah, it was interesting. I mean, I mentioned in a TikTok the other day, you know, that essentially like white men under 30 are lost to the Democratic Party. And I didn't really even say much more about it than that, but my comments were flooded with women saying, fuck them, it's not our fucking job to fix those guys, on and on and on. All of which I understood completely. But as I've thought about it over a few more days, I'm like, who they vote for is like this much of the problem. It's like the internet is now raising our young men, our boys and our young men, that, you know, with absent some serious parental interference, the internet is raising a whole new generation of just misogynists who have such warped fucking ideas.
The problem is...
Go ahead.
The vote is a symptom of the problem. Who they voted for isn't the problem. The problem is the fact that they would vote for him in the first place. And that is the issue, because that means racism is not a problem for you. Misogyny is not a problem for you. All of the things that we know about that man, and for you to have voted for him, you're either dumb, mean, or both. And we don't want to and of course now they're like, oh, let's just be friends. No, motherfuckers, I don't want to be your friend. It has nothing to do with who you voted for. It's the fact that you're the person, the type of person who votes for him, I don't want to be friends with. If you voted for Donald Trump, you're either a moron or a millionaire. Let me see your teeth and I'll tell you which one.
Yeah, no doubt, man. But watching... I'm going to say something that I'm going to ask you about a TikTok community that I know you're a part of. Watching the Trump supporters having absolute meltdowns that their friends and family and coworkers who voted for Kamala Harris just say, you're not a part of my life anymore, period. And the collective temper tantrum that they're having over that. And I saw one creator say that's because they're upset that now they have to be that 24 hours a day and hang out with those people 24 hours a day. And those people aren't fun. We are fun to hang out with. They're not.
Yeah. Why do you think the liberals have all the good music? It's the liberal arts, bitch. What do you think?
Yeah.
Of course we have all the good music in the plays and the movies. Of course.
And then I saw a little bit of drama erupt since the election on Book Talk.
Oh, yeah.
How much of that have you seen?
Well, what I have seen is that the only people... books aren't political. First and foremost, motherfucker, just go ahead and announce that you're an anti-intellectual, if you would even utter that phrase. Secondly, I have not seen a single person of color say that. Every single bitch, and I said bitch, every single bitch that said Book Talk isn't political is a dumb fucking white bitch. Every single one.
Yeah.
Everyone.
I mean, one of the things that I'm looking forward to very much, I've got a couple of guests lined up for the podcast next week who are black because, you know, it's like I'm blessed with a very large following, but it's really, really, really white. Which, you know, I understand. That's the way social media works with algorithms and things. But yeah, every single tearful Book Talk video that I've seen has been
Books
from a
aren't
white woman.
political. Shut the fuck up, bitch. Shut the fuck up. That's what I saw from Book Talk. That's what we said to them.
Yeah, and it seems to me that much more so than in 2016, it just feels like there's much more of a backlash this time around in 2024 for having voted for Donald Trump than there was the last time.
Absolutely. And as it should be, because in 2016, now listen, I voted for Hillary in 2016. Well, I voted for Bernie in the primaries. But because they ran Hillary, because the DNC ran Hillary like dumb fucks, I had to vote for her. But the thing is we knew Donald Trump was a piece of shit, but we didn't know how big a piece of shit because he was shiny and new in 2016. Oh, look, here's a new option, right? That's what they gave us. So everyone was like, all right, let's give him a fucking shot. We gave him a shot. We know now. We've seen who he is. And the way that I saw it described that really hit me like right in the soul was this morning. And they said, I read a post and it said, it doesn't feel like 2016 all over again. This time, what it feels like is when the second plane hit the second tower, because at that moment, we realized what was really happening.
Yeah.
And that's what it felt like again, when it happened again, because anybody that knows history knows that this is the rise of fascism. All the signs have been there. All the signs are there. And we have now given a sociopathic narcissist, senile narcissist, essentially. He's like, he's not right. We have given him unfettered access and complete immunity of the richest and biggest, scariest nation in the world. And that should terrify not just Americans, but the entire world.
Well, and I also mentioned that in one TikTok a few days ago that I got a lot of very, very, very emotional and moving responses and comments to. I was like, I just said, I mean, think about what it's like to be in the United States of America in 2024 and be a sexual assault survivor, and the majority of our electorate just elected a rapist to be president, knowing that about him.
And that is something that I have personal experience with, and that is something that cannot be forgiven. And that's another reason why I will not fuck with someone who voted for him. I will never fuck with someone who voted for him, because to me and every other survivor out there, when you look up and see him, you see the one that did it to you. And in my case, it was more than one. So when you see that, you don't forget. It's a visceral reaction. It's a reaction that you never get rid of, no matter how strong and how healed you are, because I'm a pretty good example of that. But it's still there. It never goes away. And if someone tells you that their vote for him, oh, that doesn't matter to me, or oh, that wasn't true. He was adjudicated by a fucking jury of his peers to be a rapist.
Yep. Yeah.
Anybody that voted for a rapist is not safe to be around. And that includes all the fucking women.
And like the day after the election, I was trading messages with my brother and our buddy Wiseacre, who does all the graphics for our merch store.
Oh, I love Wiseacre. Shout out to Wiseacre.
Wiseacre, he's amazing, man. And I freaking love that guy. And I was like, because we were trying to think of some post-election stuff to put up on our merch store. And I wanted to put up a T-shirt that says, "Every single woman in your life knows that you voted for a rapist." And then I saw that 52% of white women voted for him too. And I was like, really? Again? It's a majority? Again?
It's the majority of white women, but it's not the majority of women. It's not the majority of women. It's the majority of white women. And I think that's something that those white women need to sit with. There's a reason that you're the minority of women. There's a reason that other women don't fuck with you. There's a reason that they don't feel safe with you. And somebody put it in a way that really stuck with me. And that's because those are the women that turn a blind eye when their husband walks into their daughter's room at night. Those are the same fucking women that voted for him. Of course they did. Of course they did, because that boot feels great on their neck. And even though they are master's favorite dog, they don't realize they're still a dog.
Well,
but they're going to learn.
There was a creator. One of the things that I love about TikTok that I figured out pretty early on is that I could follow all kinds of people who don't look like me. And I follow a lot of black women on the app. I can't remember who said it the other day, but she was making a video for white women, and she was talking about this exact thing. And she was like, because the one thing that y'all can do that I can't do is you can disappear into your whiteness. And just kind of like Homer Simpson going back into the bush, you can just disappear into your whiteness and you still have that privilege, even if you're a woman. And that just struck me, because it's like, I think pretty early on, after I first joined TikTok, and I was following White Woman Whisperer and Portia, and one or both of them, hit really, really hard repeatedly. It's like, if you have privilege, you should acknowledge that privilege, and you should use that privilege. And I acknowledge my privilege on TikTok pretty frequently. And I try as often as I can to use the platform that I have to amplify voices of people who are different than me, especially given how white my following is. There was another point that I was going to make that I forgot, but but in acknowledging that a couple of times, one thing that I said is, it's like, I can dip into this stuff and I can dip out anytime I want to. I don't have to engage in any kind of work relative to race or gender if I don't want to. But the flip side to that is, it's like, I do it when I want to, but I can just disappear into my male privilege or disappear into my whiteness if I want to. And it's like, a lot of people don't have those options. And,
They don't. That's why the blue bracelet bullshit was silly. Like, you can take that bracelet off. You can take that off, or you could put it on and pretend. People do it all the time with those little crosses they wear on their necks.
Yes, they do. And I saw there was a black woman on the app who did a video reply to a comment from a Trump supporter who was saying something along the lines of, he's like, "Oh, I guess I'm going to get me and my buddies a bunch of blue bracelets now, so y'all can't tell."
Right. Right. And that's why it was bullshit. Yeah. I got emails about it. Like, do you want to join? No, bitch, I don't want to join. Because you can tell by meeting me I'm not a piece of shit. I'm not going to wear a bracelet and try and virtue signal. Yeah. Like, you know, when you meet me, I'm going to start shaking people's hands. "Hi, I'm Jordan. I voted for Kamala." Like, just to, you know what I mean? Because that's what we're moving into. That's the territory we're moving into.
Yeah.
Like, it's going to be the first question out of people's mouths, especially when voting.
Yeah. Well, I was
asking, so vocal about it. I don't have to use my platform to be political. I don't have a political platform. Well, I mean, everything's political, but I didn't build my platform on politics. So I didn't have to say a word. I have that privilege to be like, I'm not going to talk about the election. I'm just going to make videos about books and makeup and make funny I could do that. And I didn't. And I probably lost a lot of following. Fuck them. You're not welcome here. Good.
Yeah.
I don't want people to follow me, to watch what I'm saying and not know who I am. And it's me to sit here and waste my privilege and not talk about the things that were important, that matter, which is why I talk about the things I talk about that aren't. It's not easy to talk about these things. I get a lot of fucking hate. I get death threats. Somebody's got to do it.
The longer that I've been on TikTok, I mean, I'm obviously pretty outspoken about my political views as well. the number and frequency of death threats that I get has kind of tapered off. But
it has died down a bit.
Yeah, there were a lot of them for a while. But I still get comments all the time where, it'll be some dude from Indiana or something. And they're like, but you're wearing Carhartt. You're wearing Timberland boots. You're wearing a flannel shirt. What do you mean you're liberal? I'm like, this is what I wore growing up in rural Ohio, man.
You do look red. I mean, you got the blonde hair, the blue eyes. You're wearing plaid. I mean,
and the mullet.
I would, if I judged you based on your looks, I would assume you're a Trump voter. Of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah.
I think you can look at me and know that I'm a Kamala voter, although I don't have my nose ring in currently.
Yeah, I really don't think anybody at first glance is gonna think that you're a trad wife Trump voter.
No. See, I could cosplay as one if I wanted to. If I took off the red lips and did a nude makeup and straightened my hair and put on a little outfit and smiled like this, I can do it. I can blend in all day, just like you were talking about, if I should so choose to. But I paint my nails green. I got my nose pierced. I do things so that people know I'm not one of those cunts.
Yeah, exactly. What? But
no shade to the state. I know there's a lot of crossover with like I'm traditional, but we're not like that. I'm not talking about you, babe. I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about the ones. Those are the ones I'm talking about.
That's one of my favorite things about white people. It's like they see, like they'll see these discussions taking place on TikTok or something, and they just feel utterly compelled to get into the comments and say, well, not me. It's not all this or not all that, not all men. And I'm just like, man, if it's not about you, you don't have to do that.
That's why I never defend. That's why I never defend white women when they say white. I'm like, no, they are. I'm amongst them. I know. And if I just so happen to be one of the ones that's not like that, that's done the work, that makes a point to make sure I'm not fucking one of them. But they are like that. They all just voted for him again. Of course they are. Like, I get why they say all. I'm not one of those knee-jerk people. It's like, not me, though. Not me. Please validate me. The same dudes that are like, not all men. Not me. Bitch, it is you, then, if you keep fucking saying that. I'm never going to be one of those people, but not me.
Yeah.
I'll prove to you not me with my actions, not with my not me's.
One thing that fascinates me, and this was true in 2016. It's true in 2024. It's like, we have these elections, and then there's all this like internet-wide meltdown about the fact that a majority of white women voted for Donald Trump. And in 2016 and 2024, who's getting the free pass on that? White men. Who, like, 65% of them voted for Donald Trump.
Men have been the problem.
On TikTok.
Men have been the problem with electing Donald Trump.
especially white men.
Of every flavor, but did you know that Latino men outperformed white women on voting for him? More Latino men voted for Trump than white women did.
I never thought the leopards would eat my face. Well, I heard I can't remember what it was where I saw it, but I saw an interview with a very prominent Latino radio host, a guy who was either in Texas or LA. And he was choosing his words very, very carefully. He was like, I'm going to communicate to you what I hear from my male listeners. This is not me. I am telling you what I hear from them. And what they are saying is that we're never voting for a woman to be president. Women belong in the kitchen. Period. So it wasn't even the message. It was the messenger. And I'm just like, in 2024, it's like we still got this machismo culture shit going on, man.
In 2024, you would really trust a woman with your food?
there you go. Yeah, yeah, yeah. No doubt, man.
Not only do
Oh
we
my
make your food and
God.
drink, but we know where and when you sleep. Keep that in mind.
Yeah, yeah.
Keep that in mind. Because there's a reason that
It's
those women, there's a reason Lorena Bobbitt only spent 45 days in a psych facility and was released. There's a
yeah, no
reason.
doubt. It's and I guess since for the entire 8 year period since the 2016 election, I just I mean, going into this election, I was reasonably confident that Kamala Harris was going to win, but I was still saying in a lot of my TikToks, but Trump could still win this. It's a coin toss. And I used to get a whole bunch of shit for saying that. But um, I just, after 2016, I just stopped getting my hopes up. Doubly so after we got the Mueller report and all of that shit. And it's like, I just stopped getting my hopes up. Um,
See, there was no inkling in
and
my
so,
mind whatsoever that he was going to win.
huh?
There was like no reality in my mind that he was going to win. There was like no
Oh,
logistical reality. I thought there's no way they'll elect him after everything. After everything. There's no way. And then
even
I underestimated how many illiterate dipshits we have in America.
Well, yeah, and I just like I said to a couple of friends of mine, I was like, never, ever, ever bet against misogyny and racism in the United States.
Never.
And I had so many friends out here who were women, uh, lawyers, everything, who were just like, who were telling me consistently, they're like, I'm going to vote for her, but she's not going to win. This country hates women. And I'm like, come on, really? Still? And they're like, yeah, it does. It does. I'm like, fuck. and so they weren't surprised in the least. It's like they were disappointed. They were a little bit shocked, but they weren't surprised at all. And and it's like, the collective trauma that I saw on TikTok last Wednesday morning from white people that he had been reelected. And then it's like I saw so many TikToks from black creators that are just like, yeah, I'm not surprised. I'm going to go water my garden. And, I took today off, so I'm going to water the garden, wash my car, and hang out with my kids. And, I'm not surprised. And I'm
See,
like,
Bill and I were absolutely blown away. We were like, and maybe we're just
yeah,
because we lived out too hard and thought people had, empathy. I go, oh, crazy.
yeah,
We live in the city, like we live in the city. We're not like Pennsylvania was red, but where I live in Allegheny County, it was blue, man. Us and Philly are the only things keeping this state from absolute
yeah,
just, ugh. They call the middle Pennsyltucky for a reason.
yeah. Oh, I know. I grew up in Ohio.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. See, Ohio's like even worse. Dare I
Yeah,
say? Ohio's like central PA. It's the same, like just fields and butt
yeah.
fuck.
Yeah, I mean, I tell people about Ohio. I mean, it's like when I grew up, when I was a kid, like the 70s and the 80s in Ohio, it was a blue state. We had Democratic governors, Democratic senators, Democratic state house, and then it started getting purple, and then we had George W. Bush and stuff like that. And I left Ohio at the beginning of 2002, and I tell people that like since then it just turned into Alabama.
Yeah, it is
It's
the
just
Alabama of the North.
it's so red. I'm like, how did this happen? And
We go there. We have to go back to Ohio in March for He goes to the Arnold. My partner is a bodybuilder,
oh,
so we go the Arnold Classic. Yeah, it's up. It's coming
nice.
up in March, so we'll be back in Ohio then, but not
That's
before.
awesome.
We don't go
Yeah.
to Ohio on purpose. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, I still have tons of friends and family there. And, it's like there are two groups. It's like there are the people that I grew up with through high school, and they're mainly on the right. And then they're like the friends that I made in college and law school playing in bands and stuff like that. And those folks are mainly on the left. And fortunately, most of my family voted for Kamala Harris, but I had a couple cousins out there who a
We have a
little off the
guest.
rails, but
We have a guest that's joining us. I'm sorry.
outstanding. Which one we
He's
got here?
this is the Tip. I don't know if you can see his tip. Tip, come here.
Hey, buddy. I miss having cats. I miss having cats so much.
He's a good boy. He's just a pain in the ass because he
Yeah.
just wants to be. He's just happy to be included. You know what I mean?
When my mom died at the beginning of 2016, she lived out in the woods in Ohio. She had 32 cats.
Holy shit!
Yeah,
I have
she had
3.
She had 32 cats, and it was great. It was great going there to visit because it's like you always had like 2 cats in your lap, one on either side of you, one on the couch behind your head, and
Yeah.
everybody was purring. It was great. It was awesome.
Yeah, Tip's usually not allowed up here. That's why he's very excited because he's not
All
allowed
right,
up here
so
because he gets. Oh shit! That's why you're not allowed up here, Tip.
all right, I'll give you a minute
All
to
right,
fix that.
Try this. Let's try this. Let's try this again. Good thing I have pants on because that.
Yeah, no doubt.
Flashed everybody. Okay.
All right, so closing thoughts, closing question. What's the answer? How do we fix all of this?
Oh fuck. Okay. Well, how do we fix this? I mean, I don't think that this is something that like economically we're fucked for decades.
Yeah.
Do I think I think that this is something socially like societal that we can fix? I think with looking at history, it's going to get a lot worse before it gets better. Unfortunately. I think
really
that
worried
it's
about
going to be
that.
different. It's going to be different now because of social media. Social media adds an entirely new lens to this entire situation because we are now going through a historical, essentially repeat with technology that we did not have last time. And the technology still didn't beat it. Like when I kept this. I kept this fucking, this propaganda that I got from Donald Trump. I kept it. I'm keeping this because it says...
Wow.
There will be no abortion ban, right? We got these in Pennsylvania. They were sending like 10 a week. I kept this one. And when I was in Berlin, because I'm very fortunate, I traveled a lot. I've lived in 2 other countries outside of America. I've visited at least 15 of them. When I was in Berlin, I went to the museums. I saw what they did. I saw the propaganda. And when I tell you, it's exactly the same. It is step by step, exactly the same. And that is a privilege because I know that not everyone has seen that. I know that not everybody knows that. But the people who do know that has been screaming that the writing has been on the walls for years now. And we are coming up to what I can only assume in the next several years is going to be another world war. We already have, it's already happening. We got Ukraine, we have Palestine, we have Israel. All of this is already happening.
Yeah. And Russia and Israel both want to expand the wars they've already got going on.
Right. And America, if we look at the past with America, they aren't going to step in until it's too late. If you look at, World War II, we didn't step in until when? 1944? The war started in 38, right? So we didn't step in until 44. We let it go on.
No, we got in December 1941, but the war had already been going on for 3 or 4 years. Britain was already pretty well screwed at that point.
Oh, good. Well, so you know history better than I do.
But it's like China is watching everything because they want to go after Taiwan. So it's like we'll have 3 of these things going on.
They've been wanting Taiwan for a while. They want to absorb Taiwan.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So. All right.
It's sad, my friend.
Yeah, it really is. It really is. This is definitely not how I envisioned spending my mid-50s.
Well, these are my late 30s, and oh, fuck, man.
Yeah.
I certainly never thought that I would be in the streets, like, trying to get women's rights back again. We're fighting for rights that our grandmothers won.
No doubt. No doubt. All right. I'm going to wrap this up on a happy note and just say, most of the people who are listening to this who follow me probably already follow Jordan. But I will say that Jordan, I think you're the one person that I've come across on TikTok who reads more than I do. It's like you pick up a stack of like 9 books that are this thick, and you're like, "Here's what I've read in the last 2 months." I'm like, "What the hell, man?"
Let me show you some of my books. Hold on, I'll
So,
take you over here.
if you want some good book recommendations, Jordan's page is it.
I got
And
this is
as
one of
you
the
know,
shelves,
and
and then I got
the
stacks over here.
yeah,
There's a lot of books in this house, and there's a whole other library out there. We'll take you out there.
and the makeup and the fashion tips are always on point. In fact, somebody went back. Somebody went back on my page like over a year
The dress video?
and made a comment on that video, and it popped up in my notifications, and I was like, "Holy shit! I forgot about this."
I keep getting notifications for that video too because I do edit that video. It's been popping off for like the last week. I couldn't figure out why. I was like, this video's from like last year when Hawk put the dress on, and I'm like, because I keep getting notifications on my video for that.
So people who haven't seen that, you may not. It was from so long ago, but Jordan was trying on this outfit, and it was a dress that was like elastic across the top, and so I saw that, and I saved that video. And like it's like everything I do is just spur of the moment. So I hopped on Amazon and ordered a dress that looked like that, and I was like, I'm going to duet this and just see what happens. What was your reaction when you first saw that?
Because I woke up, I stitched it because I woke up and I was like, get the fuck out of here. I'm like, he did not order a dress and do this. Because your video, it had like 20,000 likes already. And I was like, this was, because it was like the next morning, right?
Yeah.
I laughed so hard. I was like, Bill, you got to see this.
Oh man, that was fun. And it's like, we're gonna have to do things like that more frequently, because I'm firmly of the belief that you know, things are gonna get bad, but we still have to be able to laugh at things if we can. And that, I mean, I'm gonna make that a bit more emphasized on my page, because there's going to be a lot of bad news, and so I want to bring some funny stuff to it as well.
I've been trying to since last week. I've been trying on my page as well. I'm trying to make sure that I'm there and I'm strong for people, and that I'm a rock, and that I'm moving forward and being optimistic and being entertaining and funny. And we have to light up the darkness.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, Jordan the Grey Witch, for joining me. This was awesome. I enjoyed it thoroughly. I always appreciate. Thank you. Yep, thank you, friend. I always appreciate the conversation. And everybody, I'll put. I'll have my brother put the tags for your TikTok and Instagram in the show notes. And so everybody who's following me, please go follow her. You won't regret it. And thank you to everyone who subscribes. And we'll see you guys soon. Thanks, everybody.